If you dare slap me, you will regret it forever.
The private jet gleamed in the sunlight, a symbol of power, wealth, and untouchable arrogance. Inside, billionaire Richard Kane lounged like a king on his throne. He was the kind of man who believed the world existed for his comfort, and everyone else were pawns to be used and discarded. The attendants moved swiftly around him, catering to his endless demands. His reputation preceded him, cutthroat in business, merciless in his private life. Yet on this flight, he was about to meet someone he could never truly control. Her name was Clara James. Clara wore her flight attendant uniform with a quiet dignity. To most, she appeared calm, polite, and professional. But behind those sharp, steady eyes was a history no passenger could imagine. She wasn't just another server in the sky. Before this, Clara had served in the military. She was an ex-soldier, trained to endure the worst, trained to fight, trained to win. But Richard didn't see that. He saw only a woman in a neat uniform, ready to bow at his command. The flight was smooth until Richard decided he wanted something special. "Bring me the 1961 Shadow Ladder," he barked, waving his hand as if he were summoning a servant in a medieval court. Clara, maintaining her professional smile, answered gently, "I'm sorry, sir, that particular vintage isn't stocked on this flight, but I can offer you," She never finished. Richard's face darkened with fury. "Do you know who I am?" His voice cut like a blade. "Yes, sir," Clara replied evenly. "You're a passenger, and my duty is your safety, not your ego." The cabin fell into silence. Other passengers glanced nervously at one another. No one had ever spoken to Richard that way, and then it happened. Smack! His hand struck her face, a sharp, echoing sound that seemed to freeze the air. The passengers gasped. Some lowered their eyes. No one dared move. But Clara, she didn't flinch. Slowly, deliberately, she adjusted her uniform, straightened her posture, and locked eyes with him. Her voice was calm, chilling in its control. "Wrong move, sir." Richard smirked, convinced he had reminded her of her place. What he didn't know was that the slap had lit a fuse. Clara went on with her duties as if nothing had happened. She poured drinks, checked on passengers, offered blankets, all with a composed smile. But beneath the calm, her mind worked like a tactician's. She had endured much worse in the military, bullets flying overhead, nights spent in hostile territory, comrades lost in battle. A slap, that was nothing. But the insult, the arrogance, that was something she could not ignore. And Clara knew patience was a weapon. Every step Richard took, every word he uttered, she memorized. He humiliated staff, mocked his own business partners, and even bragged about deals built on lies. He believed he was untouchable. But what Richard didn't know was that Clara wasn't just an attendant on this flight. She was a witness. And the jet had cameras. After the plane landed, Richard strutted away, oblivious to the storm brewing behind him. Clara quietly left with a copy of the surveillance footage in her possession. That night in her small apartment, she replayed the moment again and again. The billionaire's hand rising, the sharp sound of the slap, the cruel smirk afterward. She didn't feel rage. She felt purpose. This wasn't about one slap anymore. It was about everything he represented: abuse of power, arrogance, cruelty. And Clara wasn't the kind of woman to let men like him win. She began digging. Clara started contacting people, former employees who had been fired unfairly, business partners he had ruined, assistants silenced by fear. With the footage as undeniable proof of his character, people began to talk. Stories spilled out. Richard Kane had destroyed lives, manipulated contracts, cheated, lied, and crushed anyone who stood in his way. Until now, no one dared speak, but Clara gave them courage. Within weeks, Clara had built a quiet army of voices, and then she set the dominoes falling. The slap video leaked first, appearing on a small forum before exploding across social media. Within hours, millions had seen the mighty billionaire strike a woman in uniform, only for her to stand tall and unbroken. The internet was merciless. Hashtags trended. News anchors replayed the footage. And Clara, she stayed silent. She didn't chase fame. She didn't sell her story. She simply let the truth speak for itself. Richard Kane's empire began to crumble. Sponsors withdrew their support. Investors pulled out in fear of public backlash. Lawsuits piled up as former associates found their courage to come forward. The man who once walked red carpets with pride now couldn't step outside without being followed by angry protesters, flashing cameras, and endless questions. Everywhere he turned, the image of Clara's steady gaze haunted him. The woman he thought he could humiliate had dismantled his kingdom with calm precision. Months later, when most of his empire lay in ruins, Richard found her again. He stormed into an airport lounge, his tailored suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. Clara was there, pouring coffee for passengers, as serene as ever. "You ruined me," he snarled. His voice was desperate, cracking with rage. Clara met his eyes without fear. "No, Richard, you ruined yourself. I just made sure the world saw it." Her words were quiet, but they cut deeper than any slap could. Around her, other attendants watched, some wide-eyed, others smiling with pride. For them, Clara was more than a colleague now. She was proof that no matter how powerful someone seemed, arrogance could be toppled. Richard's shoulders slumped. For the first time, he looked small, defeated. He turned and stumbled away, the echo of his own downfall trailing behind him. That night, Clara walked outside into the crisp air, breathing deeply. For years, she had carried the weight of silence, but now she felt light. Justice, she realized, wasn't always about courts or laws. Sometimes justice came from standing tall when others expected you to bow. Sometimes justice came from patience, strategy, and courage. And sometimes justice came from the woman you thought was powerless. Richard Kane disappeared from the headlines soon after, his fortune shattered, his reputation ruined. But Clara's story lived on, not just as gossip or viral video fodder, but as a legend told among attendants, whispered in business circles, shared online whenever someone needed a reminder. Be careful who you disrespect. Because some battles are won not with fists or money, but with dignity, silence, and truth. And that's how a single slap destroyed a billionaire and created a heroine.